The thing in the fog. I've never talked about this before. Not to my friends, not to my family. But ever since that night in the woods, I haven't slept right. I still wake up at 3:17 a.m. every single night, drenched in sweat, feeling like something is watching me. If I don't tell this story, I think it'll eat away at me completely. This happened 3 years ago, in the late fall, right before the first snow hit. My friend Mason and I decided to go on a weekend camping trip. He knew a secluded spot in northern Maine, real remote, dense forest, no cell service for miles. He said we could hike out to a ridge overlooking this old valley that used to be a logging site back in the 1800s. It sounded perfect, peaceful, untouched. We set up camp around 3 p.m. on Friday. By dusk, the trees cast long, black shadows, and the wind picked up, rustling the orange and brown leaves like whispers just out of earshot. We made a fire, cooked some beans, and just sat there, drinking cheap whiskey, talking about life. Mason always had a way of making silence feel comfortable. Around 10 p.m., the fog rolled in, not like normal mist. This fog was thick, unnaturally thick. I'm talking can't see your hand in front of your face thick. It swallowed the trees and muffled every sound. Even the crackling fire sounded distant, like it was underwater. At first, we joked about it. Guess Silent Hill's come to visit, Mason laughed. But then we heard it. Not an animal, not the wind. It was breathing, deep, labored breaths. Like something massive was just outside the ring of light cast by the fire, exhaling through its nose. Slow and deliberate. We froze. Mason stood up and shone his flashlight into the fog. The beam didn't go more than 10 feet before getting eaten by the white. Nothing. Just the sound of that horrible breathing circling us. Probably a moose, Mason whispered. They can get close sometimes, especially in fog. But I could see it in his eyes. He didn't believe that. Neither did I. Then the breathing stopped. And for a moment, the only sound was the fire crackling. That brief silence was worse than the breathing. It was the kind of silence that feels aware, like it's waiting for you to let your guard down. Suddenly from the left, we heard something snap loud. A branch broken in half. We spun, flashlights up. Nothing. Then, from the right, another snap. Closer. It was playing with us. We backed toward the tent. I grabbed the hatchet from the log pile. Mason clutched a flare. The fire's light flickered like it was about to die, even though we had just fed it. I swear to God, what stepped into view next was not an animal. It was tall, 7, maybe 8 feet, but thin, starved looking. Its skin was gray, almost translucent, and its limbs were long and unnatural, like they'd been stretched. Its head tilted to one side like it was studying us, but it had no visible eyes, just a smooth, pale face and a wide mouth that opened slightly as it breathed in and out, in and out. It didn't walk. It twitched forward in little jerks, like its joints weren't right. The air got cold, like winter cold. Our breath came out in clouds, even though it had been in the 40s all day. Mason raised the flare and lit it. The creature stopped, hissing like the light burned it. Then it turned and vanished into the fog. We didn't talk. We just ran. We didn't pack. We didn't grab our bags. We left the fire burning and ran down the trail we came up. But the fog followed us, thicker than ever. The trees looked unfamiliar, like the trail had shifted. We couldn't see more than a few feet ahead. Then we heard it again, behind us. That awful breathing. It got closer and closer, until I tripped. I landed hard, scraping my hands on the gravel. Mason stopped to help me up. And that's when I saw it again, right behind him. I screamed. It lunged. But instead of attacking, it stopped right at the edge of the trail. Like it couldn't pass a certain point. It just stood there, swaying, mouth open, exhaling its foul, freezing breath. Mason turned and saw it too. He yanked me to my feet and we ran again, hearts pounding, lungs burning. We didn't stop until we reached the truck, parked about a mile out near the old access road. The fog hadn't reached that far. As soon as we crossed into the clearing, it vanished like smoke on the wind. We didn't speak on the drive back, not until we were nearly 2 hours out and back in cell range. I looked at Mason and asked, "What the hell was that?" He didn't answer. He just stared straight ahead, white-knuckled on the wheel. When we got home, we both agreed never to go back there. Ever. But here's the thing that still keeps me up at night. A few weeks later, Mason went back. He didn't tell me, didn't tell anyone. I found out when his sister called me, crying, asking if I'd heard from him. They found his truck, parked in the same place. Engine cold. No sign of him. Just a single set of footprints leading into the woods. And they never came back out. They searched for days. Dogs, helicopters, you name it. Nothing. Only one strange detail was ever mentioned in the official report. The search team noted that the trees in that part of the forest were covered in ice. Like they'd been flash frozen, even though temperatures were still in the 40s. I haven't gone camping since, and I never will again. Because I know that thing's still out there, waiting. And whatever boundary kept it at bay that night, I'm terrified it might not hold forever. Story 2. Branches. I don't know what's real anymore, but I'll tell you what I remember. And maybe you can make sense of it. Maybe someone can tell me I didn't just lose my mind out there. It started with the breakup. I needed to get away. Everyone was saying I should see someone, talk about my trauma. But all I wanted was silence. Space. Somewhere that didn't echo with her voice or the sound of that door slamming for the last time. So I went off-grid for a week. Rented a cheap cabin in a forest preserve in upstate Vermont. Nothing fancy. No internet. No phone signal. Just a fireplace, a cot, and trees as far as the eye could see. The first day was calm. I brought a journal and tried to write down how I was feeling. I sat on the porch and listened to the wind move through the trees. It was peaceful, healing. The second day, I went deeper into the forest. There were trails, but they weren't maintained. Just old hunter's paths, overgrown and meandering. I brought a compass, but not much else. I didn't think I'd need more. I told myself, this is exactly what you need. Disconnect. Breathe. Then I found the pile. It was maybe 3 miles from the cabin, just off the trail, hidden behind a curtain of low branches. A mound of sticks, neatly stacked, maybe 4 feet high. But what made it strange was that it wasn't just random debris. Every branch had been stripped of bark, smoothed, clean, and they were stacked in a spiral, not like firewood, more like a nest or an altar. I laughed it off at the time. Took a photo with my disposable camera and made a joke in my journal about forest weirdos. That night, I dreamed of snapping branches, loud, rhythmic cracks like someone or something was walking in circles around the cabin, stepping on sticks over and over. I woke up in a sweat, no sound, just stillness. Day 3, I went back to the pile, but it was gone. Not scattered, not disturbed. Just gone. No broken twigs, no scuffed dirt. Like it had never been there at all. I felt dizzy, disoriented, like I'd misremembered the spot. But I had the compass reading. I'd written it down in the journal. NE, 60 degrees, 3.2 miles. I followed it again. I ended up in the exact same place. Same bent sapling, same mossy stump, but no pile. When I turned to head back, I noticed something. A single branch, stripped of bark, stuck upright in the dirt, perfectly vertical. That night, I locked the cabin door. Not because I was scared, just uneasy. I told myself I was being silly. The stress, the solitude, the emotional baggage, I was probably projecting, a mind looking for patterns. But that night, the sound came again. Not branches snapping, tapping, on the windows. Soft, deliberate taps, like fingernails on glass. No wind, no trees close enough to scrape. Just those slow, repetitive taps. I didn't move. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, counting the seconds between each sound. When I woke up the next morning, every window was open, wide open. Curtains blowing in the still air. No signs of forced entry, no footprints. Just a single smooth branch left on the kitchen table. That was the moment something broke in me. I told myself someone was messing with me. A local, a hermit. Maybe someone didn't want me there. I packed my gear in a frenzy, ready to leave. But when I reached for my compass, it was gone. So was the journal. I searched the whole cabin. Nothing. Like they had been plucked clean from the space. I panicked. I tried to hike out without the trail, just straight south, following the sun. After 2 hours, I came back to the cabin. I swear to you, I never turned. I walked in a straight line. But the trees, they had shifted, bent toward me, watching. I stayed inside the rest of the day. Boarded the windows with firewood, didn't sleep. Around midnight, the tapping started again. Then whispers, not words, just the cadence of speech, soft murmurs just beyond the wall, like a conversation with the volume turned all the way down. Then laughter, my own laughter. I ran to the mirror above the sink, and for a second, I swear I saw myself, but smiling wrong. Too wide, too eager, like something was wearing my face. The reflection blinked when I didn't. That was the last straw. I broke the mirror. I screamed. I tore up the floorboards looking for the compass. Found nothing but another stripped branch under the bed. I ran out into the woods, screaming into the dark. I know you're out here. And then, silence, except for one word whispered from the trees. Stay. That's when I ran. I didn't care where. I just ran until my legs gave out. And that's where they found me. 2 days later, a ranger spotted me crawling barefoot along the highway 10 miles south. Clothes torn, no gear, just one thing in my hands, a journal. Only it wasn't mine. It was identical. Same cover, same pages. But the writing inside wasn't in my handwriting. It was about me. Everything I'd done, everything I'd thought. Word for word, written down in someone else's script. I'm in a facility now. They say I suffered a psychotic break, hallucinated the whole thing. They found the cabin. It was untouched. No sign of entry. No strange branches. No piles. They say it was all in my head. But last night, a nurse came in to check my vitals. She smiled at me. And for a second, just a second, I saw her eyes shimmer like glass. Her smile stretched wider than it should have. And when she left, I found something under my pillow. Another stripped branch, upright, perfectly vertical. Story 3. The Breather. We were only supposed to be out there one night. 3 friends, 1 tent, and a long overdue escape from the city. No phones, no work, just a fire, some beer, and the kind of dark you only get when you're miles from anything with a light switch. The place we picked wasn't even an official campground, just a little spot in the woods Jake knew about from his uncle. Perfect for getting off the grid, he said. Nobody around for miles. He wasn't kidding. We had to park on an old dirt service road and hike in nearly 2 hours. The deeper we got, the quieter it became. Not peaceful quiet, dead quiet, no birds, no breeze. Just the crunch of leaves under our boots. Jake and Melissa seemed to love it. Me? I was trying to pretend I wasn't freaked out. We set up camp by this stagnant little pond, built a fire, passed a bottle, told stupid stories. By midnight, Melissa was already curled up in the tent, and Jake was snoring in his chair. I stayed up a little longer, staring into the fire, listening. That's when I heard it, breathing. Not loud, not close, but just distinct enough to send a chill down my spine. I turned off my headlamp and sat still, barely breathing myself. There it was again, low, shallow breathing, coming from the tree line across the pond. I whispered Jake's name. Nothing. I stood up and scanned the darkness. Could have been an animal, a deer maybe, a bear. But it didn't move, just kept breathing. Eventually, it stopped, just cut off. I waited another 15 minutes, then went into the tent and zipped it shut like I was sealing a vault. I didn't sleep. Next morning, I told them about it. Jake laughed. Dude, it was probably an owl, or maybe your own echo. You were drunk. Melissa wasn't so sure. She noticed it too. The forest felt wrong. Still, we were going to pack up after breakfast, but Jake wanted to hike out to a ridge a mile north. Said there were views that would make your phone wallpaper jealous. Melissa stayed back. I went with him, still feeling uneasy. The ridge was beautiful, I'll admit. A drop-off into a sea of pine and fog, mountains on the horizon. Then Jake said something weird. Hey, why'd you leave the tent last night? I looked at him. I didn't. He raised an eyebrow. Yeah, you did. I saw you. Around 3 in the morning, just standing there, a few feet from the tent. I figured you were taking a leak. I stared at him, blood running cold. I never left the tent. Jake didn't say anything for a second. Then, okay, well, maybe I was dreaming. We headed back fast. Melissa was gone. The tent was open. Her bag was still inside. Her phone, her shoes, everything. We shouted her name until our voices cracked. Nothing but our echoes in the trees. Jake ran toward the pond, searching the banks. I checked the woods. And that's when I found the footprints. Bare feet, just 2 of them. Side by side, like someone had been standing there, watching our camp. They were deep. Whoever it was had been heavy, or standing there a long time. And they were facing the tent. I followed them as far as I could before they vanished in the brush. Then I heard Jake scream. I ran back. He was standing near the fire pit, holding something in his hands. A sock, Melissa's, and a scrap of cloth that looked torn from her hoodie. And there, in the dirt beside the fire, was a handprint. Not hers. It was too big, too long in the fingers, almost distorted, like someone had been crawling instead of walking. We called out for Melissa for hours. Nothing. With no signal and no sign of her, we had no choice. We had to get back to the car and get help. But the trail was gone. I mean, gone. We retraced every step, checked the sun's position, even tried following our footprints. But the forest didn't line up. The boulder we passed, gone. The broken log we climbed over, vanished. Jake started yelling, kicking trees, blaming me. I blamed him right back. We screamed at each other until we were hoarse. Then we both heard it, breathing right behind us. When we turned around, there was nothing. But in the dirt between us, more bare footprints. That night, we didn't sleep. We didn't light a fire. We sat back to back with the hatchet between us, shaking. Around 3 a.m., we heard something walking just outside the ring of trees. Not running, not charging, just circling us, snapping twigs one by one. And then came the breathing again. Heavy, ragged, deliberate. Jake lost it, charged into the dark with the hatchet, screaming. The woods swallowed him whole. I waited. Minutes passed, then an hour, then 2. Jake never came back. When dawn finally broke, I ran. I don't know how I found the road. I think I ran in circles for hours before collapsing on the pavement. A passing truck found me, called the police. They sent a search party. They found the campsite, torn to pieces. The tent shredded like something clawed through it. No Melissa, no Jake, no footprints. But they did find one thing. A piece of duct tape stuck to a tree, several hundred yards from the pond. It had a smiley face drawn on it in red ink, and one word beneath it: breathe. They think someone's living out there, hunting campers, stalking them, watching. Maybe it's a man. Maybe it's a group. They never caught anyone. But last week I got a package. No return address, just my name scrawled in thick black marker. Inside was a stick of gum and a single strip of duct tape, with a new message written in red. See you next time.